Good morning, all.
Morning.
Morning.
Keith will be here soon, but I'll throw up the agenda real quick. I'm going to put it maybe on this other screen. We'll see what that does. Anita, can you hear me now?
I'm still not hearing Ruth.
You may need to leave and come back.
Is it just me?
Can you hear me, Anita?
I think it's just Ruth.
I wonder if she
Or
has her
Anita.
volume down.
You just want to get rid of me, don't you? Oh, that's weird. You can hear me. I better watch what I say. You're nodding. Okay, goodbye.
So I guess we'll wait until Anita gets back before we do roll call.
Is Keith here?
For various definitions of here.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure you wouldn't miss this because I know this is your favorite meeting. So
You guys, you all are my favorite people. I have said it many times.
You tell that to
This
all the
is
committees.
the hard working. I mean, well, really, I mean, you guys make this the easiest meeting for me to do anything with, since you're really running everything, and I'm just taking notes and trying to keep up.
Hi, Jennifer.
Yay! Praise be Jennifer as audio. Excellent.
But Anita's not back yet, and so we don't know if
No.
she has audio or not.
All I know is that if I don't get to hear about conjoined items today, I am going to riot.
same. Same.
I've been waiting for 6 months now.
Well, time will tell. Anita's on her way back in.
Excellent.
Keith, do you want to take over the screen share?
I absolutely can.
I think you can just wrest control away from me.
Violent over the coup d'etat. Is that what we're
I mean,
rolling with here? I love it.
you can try.
Coup d'etat.
Yes, a coup d'etat.
Okay.
Well,
Anita, can you hear me?
Can.
Rock on.
Outstanding.
Okay, so since we appear to be able to all be heard now, we will call the meeting to order at 10:03. Sandra, do you want to do a roll call?
Yes. When I say your name, just say if you're here. Monica Riley,
Here.
Britta Dorsey,
Present.
Mary Kay said she would not be here today. Is that right? She's not here.
That's correct.
Josephine
Here.
Kaiser,
Here.
Charles.
He's here. I don't think he has sound.
Okay. Jocelyn is here, definitely. Lauren McPike. Is Lauren here?
I don't think I saw her.
I've not
I
seen
don't see
Lauren
her.
come in yet.
Okay. Kayla Morris.
Here.
Sandra Osborne is here. Emma Ritchie.
Here.
Jennifer Steffi.
Jennifer is here.
Jennifer's
She's
here.
in chat.
Jennifer's here. Christy Witten
Present.
and Anita Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
You are here. And then from the State Library, Ruth. And Keith are here. Is Lynn here?
I'm here.
Yep.
Lynn's here. Okay. And if you are a guest and you want to be included in the minutes, please put your name and your library in the chat.
Thank you, Sandra.
Sure.
So you all were sent the agenda and Keith is displaying it on the screen right now. Does anyone have any amendments to the agenda, or can I get approval, a movement to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve it.
I'll second.
And that was Emma, and I'm not sure who was the second.
Christy.
Christy was the second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda as is, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the agenda has been approved. So moving on to the minutes from the June meeting. Those were emailed to us as well, and Keith also has those on the screen. Do I have any comments for corrections or additions?
My comment is, I'm sorry I missed it. I was on the agenda.
Oh, don't worry, Anita. We've saved a place just for you.
Oh, thanks. I'll be able to see better. I was right out of cataract surgery, so yeah, I wasn't able.
But doing better now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good.
I suppose we'll accept that.
If there's no, I'm sorry, Britta.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second. Kayla will second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. The June minutes have been approved. That takes us to the Indiana State Library report.
Oh, how quickly things change. I was reading through the minutes, and this time during our last meeting, we were just talking about opening up proposals for the annual for sessions at the annual conference, and here we are in a much different world, gearing up for well, that we'll leave that for the new business section here. We'll talk about the conference sessions a little bit more later on, but the biggest thing is just that we have reached out to several of the, well, we have reached out to everybody and heard back from several of the participants who were scheduled to present at the annual conference, and we have begun the process of scheduling those sessions to be moved online. those will take place on various Tuesdays and Thursdays over the next several months here. But that is really, I think, all that I have to report on here. State-wise, Ruth, feel free to jump in here. And
So we have heard from all of the presenters,
excellent.
and everybody confirmed that they would be willing to go to a virtual format. So we have a survey out right now to get preferences for scheduling. I did hear back from one presenter who's just taken a new job. This is not a cataloger, so who will be transitioning to their new job, I believe, next week, but still plans to present. So that's cool. And the other thing, I guess I'll just go straight into that subcommittee report, since it's part of the state library report as well. Oh no, I'm going to go back to the state library report. So I have been monitoring the parts situation, I guess is the best way. I'll just call it the parts situation. And currently we have about 95,000 items that have a transiting media type circulation modifier that do not have parts assigned to them. So what I am doing right now is I'm creating a bucket for every library in the consortium, and I am essentially throwing all of those items that belong to each library that need to have those transiting items, need to have parts supplied to them, into those buckets. And then once that is done, or at some point between now and being done, I'll start contacting libraries and saying, hey, you have some stuff in this bucket you may want to address. They're all shared buckets. And yeah, I will say on the record, it's an insane project. I know that Anna was somehow, maybe her project was insane too. I can only imagine that it was, because I think it was perhaps even bigger than this. I think it was the other set of things that was not just transiting media, but any AV materials. So anything with a circulation modifier of DVD or DVD R-rated. And there's about 400,000 of those items that do not have parts applied to them. And I just took a look at those and said, nah, we're going to do the stuff that we need to do quicker, since these are things that are going to go in between libraries theoretically. And hopefully, I mean, that's the intent. And people need to know what they're getting as they're placing those holds a little bit more so, I guess, than just going to the shelf, picking something off of it and then wondering, does it have parts? It doesn't matter. So anyway, so that is ongoing. The other part, now I'll go into the subcommittee thing, is I'm working on putting the question bank together for the asynchronous advanced cataloging course. The course itself has been completely mapped out and has probably 50% of the content in it, apart from the question bank. And the question bank will include both traditional kind of questions, but then also activities that will allow that asynchronous course to count toward actual certification as a Cat 1 cataloger, of course, with supervisory recommendation for that. So I think those are my two things. Oh, I guess from the last meeting, the compiled training manual, cataloging training manual, has gone live and is available. Let me see. Well, we'll get there later on. I don't want to spend time getting there. I did get an email from Jocelyn, and Jocelyn, I read it, but the content has escaped me.
About
about a chapter.
No, that was Britta.
Okay, Britta.
Britta
Sorry.
apologized for not doing something, so I think we should kick her out of the group. I mean, I know
That's
she's
never gonna
done
happen.
a disproportionate amount of chapters, but I mean, she fell through for us, you
I know, right? So, I mean, basically, you're off the team.
Yeah.
Hey, if
100%
that's what
not
it
off the team.
takes.
No, these are all lies. Anybody that's is not getting the complete sarcasm there, please know that she's never, ever leaving this committee. And that
Yes.
is not sarcasm at all. I'm going
Well,
to,
you-
Appreciate you,
think-
Britta.
Closer to the edge.
I think it was the parts chapter, like supposed to be chapter 25 or something, that I didn't get to.
let me. Pardon me while I look at something that's not on your screen.
Do you have a link to the training manual in here? Is
Oh,
25
managing
is the-
monographic parts, yeah. So if you can actually go to the live catalog and see. Oh, I'm looking at a screen that looks just like Keith's screen, and so it's kind of disconcerting on the screen share and the. So this, what you're looking at, Keith, that is actually not the live. Can you
That's the
go
sign-up
to
sheet.
the website and go to training manual?
Yes. I know where that's at.
It's
off
under
the top
member
of my head.
resources. This is
And
problem.
I
Member,
I never ever go to
yeah,
the
it's
wrong
the,
thing 8 times.
and then the cataloging training manual.
Circulate. Who lets
You're
me
very
drive?
close.
Who
There
lets me
you go.
drive? Really, this is.
Me, I let you drive. Okay, so managing monograph parts. Yep. Oh, that's fantastic. Over on the side there, it does exist. I'll have to fix that link, but just scroll all the way down.
Scrolling. It's catching up.
There, managing monograph parts.
I'm sure it will get there eventually. It is thinking.
Interesting.
I hear my
Okay.
I hear my computer's fan whirring. I assume this is
No, that jumped to
Even a
the
bit
wrong
heavy.
link. So
conjoined items. Boy, this
Woohoo.
is like a Ouija board. It just really wants us to talk about conjoined items.
I'd say so.
Who doesn't?
Okay, managing monographic parts. We have arrived.
So there was some stuff in there. I think that I did update some of it in preparation to have it go out there, Britta. So may take a look at the live one and see. This one compared to the one that you're working on and see if you actually need to do very much. I'm not sure. The other part that I will say about this while we are here is that we will be upgrading to 3.7 in November, which is prior to our next meeting. And it is not on the agenda. Keith, you can go back to the agenda.
That would be part of the state library report, I suppose. But
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then we will be looking at, there will be some additions to the cataloging training manual, which is soon as, well, very soon, I'll have a list of those things sent out to the committee, what will need to be added, as well as, Kate, I'll get to your question in just a second, as well as what things will need to have new screenshots for them, because there will be some updated interfaces. Kate asked if there will be trainings prior to the rollout. Yes, there will be. Going to be working with Lynn to figure out as soon as we have a production-like environment to get those things together. And we'll be looking at late October, early November to have those new features as well as updated interfaces that will come out. One of the things that we will talk about, and I'm checking the agenda here real quick. We'll just wait till it's in the agenda under the annual refresher. So that's all I have for this.
Section 7, subsection A, subsection 2.
He meant section 8. Those Romans, they've messed with us.
So is that, are we done with the state library and the subcommittee reports, or do you have more?
No, unless you want to talk about something else.
I
No.
have nothing else to report at this time.
Okay.
Okay, so we can move on to unfinished business. Ta-da, conjoined items.
All right, Anita, no escaping.
I don't know how much we need to discuss because I would assume that you're one of the people that Keith and Ruth have contacted about doing your session online. But
Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, maybe I just want to wait for the online session.
Cool,
Well,
okay.
I assume that if we did go live, you guys were going to bring your rotten tomatoes to toss at me if I presented it to you for the first time. The giant question that I had in wanting to present it to the committee first was, is it even allowed or legal to create a MARC record for an idea? This is a virtual shelf. Sometimes it's virtual. And of course, I'm not that adept at creating from scratch a MARC record anyway, but creating a MARC record to describe something that doesn't exist was certainly a challenge. And they are not representative of the quality of you guys' records as a whole. Because how are you going to describe this? It's just an idea and things are conjoined to that, they're residing there. So if you've got comments about it before the presentation, that would be great. But they're out there to view, they're out there to look at now because they have created a link between an actual item and a list that staff and patrons can look at, and that provides a link to the item. So I mean, there's some funky looking MARC records, I admit. Anything Kendallville shelf?
Yeah,
You'll
just
find-
search Kendallville shelf and you'll get lots.
You'll
I
get
mean-
our listing of choices. One of the things I ran into yesterday, speaking of parts, was that if a patron comes up to the desk and says, what magazines do you have? You can usually point them to a room, you know, the adult shelves are over there, the kid magazines are over there.
So Charles has a good comment, and in line with my overall cataloging philosophy. Now, that is not to say necessarily evergreen, that you can, of course, catalog anything with the right descriptors. And I will also say that MARC is not exclusive to the cataloging of things. I mean, MARC records are used for authorities and all sorts of other things. I mean, it's just a readable format that we have, of course, used to use for monographs and other stuff.
I think we've lost Anita.
I think that Anita is frozen as
Yeah,
well.
she's, yeah.
Uh-oh, she like I lost it.
So in the meantime, while we hope that she is coming back, I see what they're doing. I'm wondering if it wouldn't be appropriate to, first of all, decide if it's okay. And then if we decide it's okay, to create an actual MARC template that must be filled out in full for something like this.
So my question is, is this essentially just creating a list? Is this kind of like a bucket?
Yeah,
It
I don't,
is.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
very
feel
much
like we
is.
should have records in a catalog. What
bucket.
it sounds like we're doing is making, like, kind of trying to fit a piece for a list into our catalog for our collections.
I think that that is what's happening. And I think part of it is because lists have not been particularly functional. And it's been a workaround now. I haven't done a lot of testing since we've upgraded, and I think more testing will need to happen after the server upgrades as well to see if those bottlenecks with the lists that were causing them to time out have been alleviated.
The last time I tried it, it timed out and I couldn't. So yeah, once we get more servers going, we need to see if that actually will fix it.
Mhm.
But do we really want, I mean, I understand if it's a workaround for something that doesn't work very well in Evergreen, I understand that, but do we really want our catalog of physical materials to have lists pushed into it?
I mean, ideally, no.
I was gonna say, I'm kind of on the same page as Monica. Like, I get the idea behind it, but I think really the Evergreen catalog should be for records for individual items.
I would agree, and that maybe instead we have links to, like, web pages that have the lists that they need, so that it's outside of our catalog.
Kate says, but aren't conjoined items largely being used to create homemade binge boxes and kits? Yeah, I mean, that's the purpose of them on the surface. And Kendallville.
It is. I thought binge boxes have
Well,
their own
binge
records.
I was going to say, that's why it says homemade binge boxes. And it predated that as its own. But as you say, binge boxes do have.
I mean, binge boxes and kits both have their own records where it describes how many pieces there are and what kind of pieces and whatever. The conjoined items
In some
maybe
cases
can be used in that way, but that's not what they're for, I don't think.
I think they're for whatever use case they work for.
If you just grab a movie that you have and you put it in a binge box, you still want to say you have that movie. You want a record for that movie. So the conjoined item is like, yes, you have it, but you're doing something weird with it.
Right.
Essentially.
Eckerd Public Library does binge boxes. We just create our own record and then we use an extended 505 though.
That's,
I mean, you could do that. That's one way to do it. But the whole point of conjoined items is that you can have your item on the record that everyone else is using, but you're putting it with other stuff. So if someone finds that record for that movie, they're like, oh yeah, you have it, but it's in, maybe you have a copy that just circulates, but you might also have a copy in a binge box, and the patron might be like, well, I just want I want it, so I'll take the binge box.
I mean, the case could be made that the binge box records are essentially kind of the same deal, that you've created this record to group things together. It's just a physical grouping as opposed to this virtual grouping.
This is a virtual grouping.
But it does display, it does display differently. I've even had, my circulation manager has even contacted me because they saw one of Kindleville's things where it had Kindleville with 2 lines and she didn't understand what she was looking at. So it's affecting.
It does display differently, yeah, because
how the rest of us use the catalog.
Boy, I sure wish I would have gotten in on that discussion.
Oh, no, say welcome back. The discussion has been about the same thing, about the inclusion of mark to describe something that is essentially a list. And my comment for that was that lists have been notoriously unpredictable and unreliable. and that perhaps this use of conjoined items to create essentially a list was to just circumnavigate the fact that the lists are unpredictable and unreliable.
The lists are prevalent in other databases. Other libraries don't have a problem displaying lists like the Project Lit, let's say.
Mhm.
You can go to many of the other libraries and you can see staff picks, staff lists, etc. But one of the things that is different if you can join, this is the master stroke to me was, yes, I can list all of the book titles. I can list titles and authors in the 505 field. That would make all of that searchable. The problem is I want a link for the patrons. And if I can join the item to that list, they have an alphabetical listing of all of our magazines. That's my example. An example. And if they're sitting at home, they don't have access to the room or the actual shelf of magazines. They can actually see the magazines that we have in-house, link to that magazine and put whatever they want on hold. The other additional huge benefit to us was we don't just stop with 5 binge boxes of movies. We don't stop with 5 art prints to check out. We've got over 700 art prints to check out. We've got over 100 Lego kits. I mean, they're just, how is a staff member going to remember the actual title, a keyword that's going to link all of them, or an author? Some of these things don't even have an author to check in a search. So if the staff members can't come up with it and the patrons can't come up with it, how are they going to find those items in a catalog? And who knows if it's available or not? But the linked item will show availability in that listing.
So one thing that I would that I think that covers that problem at my library is I use shelving locations. So like my launch pads, if I want a whole list of my launch pads, which we have over 200, I can, they're all in their own shelving location. So your magazines, I would think, would all be in the same shelving location. So someone could go online and limit to your serials or periodicals or whatever you call your shelving location. Likewise, I also have on my...
Wait just a second.
Tried one of those searches, Monica?
I'm sorry?
Have you actually tried one of those searches?
Yeah. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Anita.
I 300 as a result, and only the first thing on the list is RV Magazine. We had 300 items and we have about 130 magazines. That's true. But the other 5 listed on that page, I have no idea where they are, whose they are. I limit it to Kendallville. I limit it to our shelving location and serials and periodicals. It's that kind of search result that drives me out of my mind.
Well, that's I think has to do with e-records and records for GovDocs and stuff that don't have holdings, and that's something we can't control.
Well, and I think that's what Anita is addressing here, is that by doing this, creating this virtual shelf, it gives much more control to what displays there.
Well,
and the staff lose confidence if they get that kind of search result, because at this point they've waited 5 days to get any kind of a search result anyway.
Okay. The other thing that I was going to say is, in addition to shelving location, all my Launchpad records have a 500 note that say Playaway Launchpad. So if I limit to my shelving location and I do a keyword search for Launchpad or Playaway Launchpad, it's going to get rid of all those empty records and it's just going to have my Launchpads. So anyway, I don't know.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, so one thing that I would know, and Jocelyn, don't forget what you're thinking.
That's fine.
Is that I've heard a lot of my library does it this way, and that's cool. Your library should be able to do it that way. But we need to keep in mind as well that whatever is decided needs to accommodate all of that.
That
to
is
a certain
true.
extent.
That is true, but these conjoined items affect the rest of us, and
Can you
again,
describe again in a way that it negatively, in fact, because Anita wasn't here for what you were describing?
well, honestly, I've not seen too much. I just know that it was confusing even for my circulation staff which they didn't know what they were looking at because they saw two different Kindle things and they thought there was a problem. But anyway, it's probably not a huge problem to the rest of us. But again, it's describing something that doesn't exist. It's just a list. Do we want to keep that in the catalog?
Well, it does exist.
It doesn't physically exist. It is still just a list. It's just like a bucket. Do we want that but the bucket isn't in the catalog. You can't search the catalog for a bucket. Do we want lists to be in the catalog?
And that is the question.
Well, I just did a search at Lebanon. I just wanted to see what they had as new 4K releases, and I got well over 1,000 results. So you can't really do what she's trying to get it to do. And how I think what would happen when I did that search is I would just see their new 4K results. No, I'm seeing one 4K result and a bunch of stuff and other miscellaneous detritus. So
that's a little bit of a bad example though, because one, you can need to get rid of your electronic resources, but two, the letters 4 and K, as opposed to looking for a real keyword.
No, I didn't do any. I just no title browse because I want to see what they have at that shelving location.
And what shelving location is that? Like
I
new
picked
items?
yeah, they have, that was the very first one on their list. And so it does show what they have there, but it's also showing a lot of other things. And it took very long to run. If I were a patron, I would have assumed it wasn't working.
I buy that.
What was your search, Jocelyn?
Oh, I searched as Lebanon Public Library. I searched for their location, AV 4K nearly new movies with no title or anything. I just searched the location. Because in a lot of systems, that's how you just see everything that has that location, because you don't know what's out. You just want to see what they've got in. Yeah, I'm getting people's vertical files. So I mean, what she's doing is a workaround for making it easier for patrons to search for things the way they want to search for things.
My ultimate goal on this was to have things in organized, like things that are commonly requested. What do you have for library things? What do you have in Lego kits that would appear on the carousel that we were promised the last upgrade?
Well, and that's so. This is the thing that my concern is that
apparently, if they are in a conjoined list, because that shows up as one of your options in your conjoined items. You've got like 3 things you can do with the items in that list. One of them is to add them to the carousel. So I'm thinking that eventually these listings of things combined with a picture, which would be nice, next Tuesday or whatever, that they would be able to be seen, viewed, picked, chosen, and find out the availability of that item.
So Anita, is this a workaround essentially for what you were hoping the carousels would do?
Actually, it's an attempt to make our huge collection of bizarre things findable, because they might not necessarily have an easy title to search for. They have no author. They could be on the kids shelf or the adult shelf for board games.
Right.
They could be, the ownership of them. They could be multiple shelving locations because we don't have all of the board games in
In the
kids,
same place.
or in adult.
About how many conjoined item records do you have?
The staff at the circulation desk being asked this question, well, they can say, here is a printed form. We have a brochure showing all of our Lego kits. Unfortunately, the adult department just added 5 more kits to that list. Are they supposed to print that out every time we add something?
Right. How many conjoined item records do you have? Do you know offhand?
No, a blue million. And that will be the next need, will be reports on determining what is conjoined.
But have you created the MARC records for those to attach them to?
Or shelves, you mean? How many shelves
Yes.
do we have?
Yeah, that's what I mean. How many shelves do you?
The list goes on as we break down the jigsaw puzzle by number,
Oh, sure.
350 or whatever. And we've added all of those to a record bucket. So it looks like 52
52. Oh, okay.
shelves.
And each of those has essentially a stub record as the, okay.
Book club kit started it
Yeah.
because they're always broken. And if you search for book club, if I just put it onto a regular book record, if somebody comes in and wants to know what would be at the next great book club read, you'd like to be able to search by book clubs. And we're not in with Indiana Humanities. We've got our own, we've got 50 in the adults and we've got 60 in the kids side. And so each one of those books had a unique record to include that they were a book club kit. So instead, I put all of those books on the perfectly good record already describing the same book. And then that disappeared. That made them invisible on a book club search. However, if I considered them on a shelf of all of our book club kits on the adult side, and I created a stub record, then I could attach a dummy holding, a virtual holding for a book club kit on that shelf. So the book club shelf then has all of the authors and titles in the 505 field. So if they search by that, they'll say, oh, well, Kendallville has a kit on that. And now Evergreen allows you to put multiple of the same title on hold. And we scan barcodes now, we don't handwrite them. So instead of just saying there's one kit that goes out, we're getting a record and a search for all of those books that go out. And I don't know if that's clear, but that really helped group all of those. That saved me time from coming up with a unique record for a book that's already in there. It's already in Evergreen. But it made it searchable, and while they're there, they can see that there are other book club kits available. They might see that there's, oh, well, that book is not only on the book club shelf, it's on the book page shelf, trying to keep up with the new releases for the last 3 months on the book page shelf. We can also put books in there on the list that we don't actually have. So we can list items that are on the project lit. If they search for that, they could see that, oh, well, here's a list of project lit books. Kendallville has one of the books that are on that list.
So given the discussion aloud and in the chat, I'm thinking probably what we need is for Anita to just do her presentation and enlighten us.
I lost the chat thing. Where'd it go?
And then we can all be on the same page, and she can explain it to everybody in the consortium.
But I wanted to present it to you guys to see if it's even legit before it went to presentation, and then the conference came up. I wasn't able to be here in June, so that was very frustrating.
Well, and I appreciate that, Anita.
And hang me up high at the conference.
I don't think there's anything currently written in our procedures that would prohibit this.
Right.
I
And
would
it's
agree
working
with
for your
that.
library.
I just Googled Kendallville Lego and it took me right to that list of all of your Lego sets, and I went to check them out.
Right. And that
You guys have
that's what
awesome
we've-
Lego sets.
I mean, we have been like
I haven't seen it.
lusting after Google results things
Yeah,
coming up for the.
It was just 2 clicks to get a whole list of all of the
Just a
Legos.
minute ago.
Hey, Bob's there.
It was open right before.
And yeah, Bob just left behind me. There's a question from Charles. Are lists carousels getting any upgrades with 3.7? So Charles, a full disclosure here, and there's
Nothing major, just a $3 menu.
something about a $3 menu going on somewhere. So I'm not sure whose that is. So full disclosure that lists has been a server issue with capacity and things like that. So we'll see about that. We're very hopeful that with added capacity that lists will behave better. Carousels will be turned on in 3.7. That's been something that we were hoping to show the consortium at the conference, and then ta-da, no conference. So definitely there will be carousels, and that will be included in the training prior to going live with 3.7.
So Anita, I think that I appreciate that you wanted our permission, but like Jocelyn says, there's nothing that is keeping you from doing it. And
Exactly.
given all the discussion in the chat, I think a lot of us aren't familiar enough to know to even contribute meaningfully to this conversation. So I think we would like you to probably go ahead and do the presentation, and then we can talk about it again later if we need to.
I certainly covet the info of how it is affecting other libraries, because if the record was descriptive or was a good carousel that people could put their items on, because the carousel is dealing with the record, not barcode, not an item in most cases, unless it's stuff that came back to your library. And that's all just my understanding from reading.
No, you're correct.
So if that could become a beneficial record for the evergreen libraries, that would be so much better for me than just a silo case of stuff here in Kendallville, just as it affects us. But if it just affects us, it is affecting us to be able to link the item with the people that they can find it.
Anita, one of the things too that we didn't go back to after you came back, but was discussed in there, and this is just something to keep in mind, is that if it all goes forward and things continue as they are, and we're creating MARC records, that I do think that there needs to be a MARC template that is created specifically for these, that has descriptive fields defined, so that you don't, just so that you don't have to do them on the fly all the time, and that there's some standardization. I will go on record saying that I'm going to have to read up to bat any time frame employees can creative uses of existing technology to sidestep restrictions, provided there's no harm. Is there any chance I can talk about the EI local thesaurus before 12? I have to leave at 12 for a staff event.
Yeah, we need to, we can, I told Emma that she's on the agenda, and that's something. So can we leave conjoined items with the assumption that Anita is going to do a presentation?
If they schedule me.
Okay.
Oh, you're getting scheduled, Anita.
You don't have to schedule me early on, but I want to get it over with, because I hate to create more shelves that I don't need.
I'm taking everybody's first choice into consideration, and as many first and second choices as I can accommodate, I will.
Thank you, and thanks for the input. Appreciate that.
Okay. Emma, we'll get through unfinished business, and then we'll move you up when we get to new business. So unfinished business, extra spaces and mark records. We talked about this last time. There's been some discussion via email since the last meeting between, I think that we needed to find out if Lynn was going to look and see if they could automatically remove all those extra spaces. Jocelyn had an email about wondering if it was even necessary to worry about them. Ruth pointed out that they sort differently if you've got spaces at the beginning of the fields. I didn't send out an email, I think, to the consortium about this, but we're still seeing it. What do people think about this? Is this something that can be automated, that Lynn could maybe just fix automatedly, or is this something that we don't even need to worry about? What do you guys think?
Quick statement. I have looked and see if I could find an old script of Jason's to remove these extra spaces. And I have not found an old script of Jason's to remove these extra spaces, but it's not something that it wouldn't be too terrible to actually write.
To remove the space between the subfield letter and the beginning of whatever text is there.
Well, and ideally at the end too. I saw your email the other day, Ruth, about it being the leading spaces, but there are also spaces
some
at the end.
Yeah, you're right.
And so when you look at it in the flat text, it looks really weird. So
But
if
also,
we could,
the other thing is I actually did some looking at which records, I had a couple of records that had these spaces in them, and some of these spaces are actually being imported that way from various different sources, where it's the spaces are just not called on import.
And I think that was actually what we were seeing by and large, was that it was an import issue.
So, I mean, I think one of the things that needs to be sent out is that if you do import a record that has these extra spaces, make sure you take those extra spaces out. But like I said, I have it would take me a minute to write the script, but because that is one gigantic field, the mark record in the database is one gigantic field.
Of course it is.
One huge long field. But
so do you want to take that on, or does it matter?
I'll take it on, just not right now. I'm in the middle of upgrading our development server today and tomorrow. I will put it on my agenda to maybe look at in either October or November, after I get all the servers upgraded to 3.7. Before we go live to 3.7, because I've got to upgrade 3 different sets of servers right now. So I will put it on my agenda to maybe look at in late October, early November, to see if we can write a script that will actually go through and remove those extra spaces.
So it doesn't seem like it's an imperative. Is that fair to say, Monica, that, or anybody else?
I don't know. I think that
I think it is an issue, but is it an imperative issue? I don't think so.
Yeah. Britta, they are visible in flat text. They're usually not visible in the mark editor or the mark view, but I will say that sometimes I catch them, because in the mark view, if it's at the very beginning of the field, I can tell that one line is indented more than the other. So then I go and look at the flat text, and there are a bunch of spaces.
I've noticed, I mean, I can see them in both the flat text and the mark view and the mark editor, but I can see them because I'm looking for them.
Right.
If I'm not looking for it, I won't see, especially in the mark editor, I will not see it.
Right. Yeah, because the mark editor seems to hide them, even if you know they're there, and then you go back to the mark editor and like use the end key or your arrows to see them, you can't find them in the mark editor, as far as I can tell.
No, actually I could. It was there, but the space is so small that you don't really see that it's jumped a spot.
Right.
Brenda says we'll want to make sure those who import check the flat text version before importing, before or after. I mean, just before it, I mean, depending on what their workflow is. Yes.
I've started a bucket and just put them into a bucket when I find them. And actually my assistant goes through and fixes them when she has time. But
to that point, Monica, if you find one, I want an example of one so I can write the script based on it.
Okay.
So, well, it could be any, especially if an older one, I can make sure that I can run the script on MIG, our migration database, or our development databases, which is what I'm in the middle of working on while I'm listening to y'all.
So if you could share that bucket, that would be
Share that
helpful.
bucket so I can see the examples in the other databases.
Okay, I will make a note to do that.
So when I write the script, I can actually catch all of the spaces in all of the different fields.
Okay. I will do that. Okay, well then, if you would
Because
look
I think
into
the leading spaces will be easier to remove than the trailing spaces.
Of course.
Right. Okay, well, if you would look into a script, that would be fantastic.
And it's also one that once we actually have it, once I have the script wrote and I know it works, we can actually go in and set it to run occasionally on a monthly basis or something.
And that would be wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, Lynn. You're up on our next agenda too for subfields in the series statements. I have your email from June 3rd where you said what displays, but I don't know, we've talked about multiple times about sorting, like if you click on a series name, we want it to not include the subfield S and maybe some others. And I don't know that any of us, if that we've gotten a clear answer as to how Evergreen treats that. If someone else knows, please tell me because I'm not sure.
I had to go back and pull up my email. What is it? Yeah.
Well, I copied it and pulled it out ahead of time, so I had it on hand.
Okay, series statements in the OPAC. Right, the series subfields. We're worried about what displays in the series statements.
Not what displays. I mean, the display is important, but the most important thing is how it collates. If you click on the series title and it's got a subfield S with audiobook, is it only going to bring up the audiobooks in that series, or is it going to bring up everything in that series, whether they're print or audiobook or whatever?
It only brings up the audiobooks currently because
we don't want it to do that.
That's what I noticed it as I was working on making sure that series, when you clicked on it, it brought up everything and anything with the subfield S in it. It doesn't show in the series that it's like a sound recording, but Evergreen will sort it into a separate, so you can have all your books, graphic novels in one series. But any audiobooks with that delimiter S, it'll put them into its own separate series statement.
Okay.
And we don't want that. We want them to collate all together because this is just a thing that's affecting audiobooks.
Okay, that has to do with search parameters, not display parameters. I'll have to do some research on the search parameters because this is not something I know right off the top of my head. If I knew everything about Evergreen off the top of my head, it'd be a different matter. All right, search for, let me write myself a note about that. So search parameters dealing with series. Because when you click on those links in the OPAC, it actually creates a new search. That's what those links do.
That makes sense.
And so what y'all are seeing is that subfield S if it has a subfield X, it actually maintains that field.
It's searching for the subfield S in addition to the title of the
A and the T. We basically want it because it ignores the V.
Mhm.
When you search, it's not looking for the exact same volume number. It's just looking at the A and T. So we want it to just look at the A and T and not the S.
Okay, well, yeah, but it does the subfield V ignores.
Yeah. It doesn't collate the volumes together. It just collates the series name.
So y'all want it to ignore the subfield S also.
Yes.
Okay. Like I said, let me do some looking and poking. And I'll get back with y'all about that. I'll send something out about it. Just see if we can get it to ignore the subfield S. Because that will drop that audiobook, DVD, or whatever else is in there in the subfield S. Okay. Like I said, let me do some search on the search parameters to see what it actually does search and does not search. That makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Lynn, for looking into that.
Sarah's got a comment here that is it still the case with 650s that it depends where you click, because it would be nice if you click on the subfield S for search and include it, but if you clicked on the series name and not include it.
That field is displayed slightly different than the subject heading field. And I think that's the issue, is the way that field is actually formatted.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Lynn.
Anything else in the comments about that?
There's nothing else in the chat. Emma, Jocelyn, anybody else have anything else for Lynn before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Mark formatting for local thesaurus. Jocelyn did some homework on this after our last thing, and kind of to see what other libraries, how they did their formatting of the mark field when they had used a local thesaurus. And she found several different examples. Her suggestion was to do a 650 with a second indicator of 7 and a subfield 2, which I was inclined to agree with, but she did have other examples. Does anyone have any comments on that, or preferences?
I'm very much in favor of the second subfield 7 with a 2, because that's what we use for everything else that has a source other than like Library of Congress. So I think it makes sense to just continue that.
I would agree.
And it will
with
make
that.
it easy to find them. So if we need to find where they're at, which records have those in, it makes it easier to find.
Charles says he agrees. Do we want to, and Jennifer agrees, this is something that I think that we should add into the procedures guide, where I was going to say where we talk about the thesaurus, but I don't think the thesaurus is in there. Go ahead. Oh, I thought you started to say something. So can we add something to the procedures guide that has that we have a local thesaurus and how it should be formatted in MARC? do I have a volunteer for writing that up that we could either vote on before the next meeting via email, or talk about and vote on at the next meeting?
I can do that. I do a lot of like cataloging resources already for my staff, so I'm pretty familiar with writing them.
And Emma,
Okay.
if you'd like me to work with you just as far as taking a look at whatever you've written, I'd be glad to do that.
Thank you, Ruth. I will definitely make sure to send that your way so that you can give your expert information.
Great. Thank you, Emma. If you want to write up something, and then we will discuss it and approve it. I would recommend, I think this came up before, although I can't remember exactly why, when we talked about there's no place that our local thesaurus is listed. I was hoping maybe we could have a link in the procedures guide to an external document that has that vocabulary.
Yes.
I don't know, Jocelyn, Ruth, Keith, can you guys generate that list of what all is in our local vocabulary?
I mean,
Sure.
I think you can see it
we-
from within Evergreen, but it's very impractical. I think it would be much nicer to just have it as like a document, that because searching the authorities in Evergreen is not,
It's terrible.
it's awful.
Right.
Let's not make
And I'm pretty sure that really anyone, at least with a Cat 1 can, but possibly even a Cat 2 or other permissions can view them, but it is gangly and yucky.
Yeah, it really is.
So
I was in there the other day looking at something. I'm like, oh my God.
it's terrible.
Emma, I saw your message in the chat, and that's what I was hoping, that there was a way for someone at the state library to export those so we wouldn't have to retype them.
As for exporting what is in the local,
right now it's not a very big list.
no.
Mm-mm.
Well, I knew that I know it's not real big, but I did know that there were several related to undocumented immigrants, several different variations, and
I think
but
it's
all that's
still in
actually
Dojo.
Yeah, all that actually is still one file. It's all in the different parts of the file.
So I will say too, and Lynn, you may know this, I believe that the interface for authorities is angularized in 3.7.
I think so.
And if it is, that makes the ability to export the grid things much easier than as they are right now. Which I believe they're still in Dojo. If I looked at them and I don't remember real quick. Let me pop over there.
Oh, it helps us actually log in. I pulled up a 3.7.
Yeah, they're still in Dojo and in 3.4, but I do believe that they get ported to Angular. So it may be such that
Yes, they are in Angular in 3.7.
So that would make it much easier to export all that data rather than having to retype that.
Okay, so there's also been some discussion in the chat about what goes in the subfield 2. Jocelyn's suggestion was to put EGIN, which seems okay. I will say that her suggestion has it in all caps. I feel like sometimes in the catalog I see it in lowercase, and in the chat it's in lowercase. So does anyone have any preferences on what Emma puts in her documentation for the subfield 2?
No, I was just going on what Anna did.
Yeah, and I will say I personally would prefer it not be all caps.
I mean, it is, if you look at it as it's defined within the Evergreen software, it is in all caps, but I agree it doesn't need to be in all caps.
Right. And I think For Britta's thing, I also fear there was some confusion on what was supposed to be in the subfield 2 between EGIN and EGING. I
Because
think that
the-
one is a genre.
Well, one is, so the Library of Congress is Thesaurus A, and then she defined EGIN as Thesaurus G. And then
Oh,
I don't think the G needs to be in there.
no,
Or
not,
I
it doesn't
looked at
need to be
both
in the
of them.
subfield.
They
Yeah.
just need to be EGIN that says what thesaurus it's referring to.
I was gonna say that was what I was assuming, Charles, but I guess we're wrong on that the second G was referring to genre.
But
As
that's
opposed,
going to be indicated in the 655,
right.
650. She put them all in the same thesaurus. So I agree. Emma, yes, I think it's going to be subfields to EGIN in lowercase for everything.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Emma, and everybody else who has input. Anything else on that before we move on? Okay, encoding level changes. We talked about this a meeting or two back, that OCLC is changing what codes they use in their encoding level fixed fields. Charles emailed the list about it, or emailed the committee, I can't remember. Is this something that I just wanted to bring it up, one, because we had talked about putting it into the templates, and I wanted to know if that's been done or.
It has not been done yet.
Okay.
But I will actually update those templates and get those over to Lynn today for that.
Okay. And then is this something we want or need to add to the procedures guide? I feel like K-level records are mentioned in the procedures guide.
So that does need to be changed.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that was in there or not.
I think it is.
I might have actually.
But maybe it's already been taken out.
I'm definitely done that. Based on our conversation before.
But it is still in the templates, and that needs
the templates definitely need to. And then another thing coming out of that, and I don't know if we've discussed that, is the possibility of Keith, if you just go to the website and then go to procedures, that should, the policies and procedures for cataloging procedures guide. There we go. Those are the words. Is possibly doing an automated switch out of those fixed fields that have those attributes in there to just replace them with the new encoding levels. What say ye?
That would be awesome, because my fathers and I have been changing them. It takes a lot of time.
Because it is a one-for-one transfer or change in most cases. Lynn, I'm not sure. I mean, it's a small change, but it's got pretty broad scale.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I'd have to see. This may be when I'll toss over to Bob.
Okay, just to see what impact it might have as far as.
Well, and I didn't know if we would necessarily correct old records unless we're dealing with them. I've wondered if we would just have everything going forward be.
I'm under the impression that OCLC even isn't retro.
They're not.
Theirs.
Okay.
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've seen all sorts of encoding levels still in OCLC.
Yeah. So we may not need to fix what's already there, but as Charles said, we need to update the list and update our templates.
Yeah. In all honesty, I don't know how many people really messed with the encoding level. There's a lot of time. I don't think people look at that. So I don't think it's a really pressing issue. I'm just happy if they get the dates and the formats right. You know, I don't really care about the encoding level so much.
Right.
Okay. Well, then Ruth, if you are going to put it in the templates.
Yep, I'll do that.
And I will send something to the list if you guys want me to.
Yeah, I did put
Yeah.
in a thing that says K level has been
and it's been
deprecated.
changed. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Great.
See, the other thing is when I was cataloging, I never used a K level. So
Well, we copied off Georgia Pines.
right,
I
Georgia
think-
Pines did use K level.
Yeah, and I think that was like the preloaded template when we first started Evergreen.
Yeah, because
had the
because they're
K.
OCLC consortium. Yeah.
And it's because I was an OCLC. I mean, I was given a full OCLC cataloging. I never put in a K level record, and even in OCLC, I always used an I. But I has apparently been deprecated by, or I left it blank, one of the two. So, because I always did a full catalog record.
Yeah, we really never should have had the K because that was limited to OCLC
Right.
libraries, but it just came with Georgia Pines, and
Right.
we just rolled with it because we didn't know
They
what
do
we
what
were
we
doing.
want.
And we can do what we want.
I didn't realize until I don't know how long it said this, but it says in what you're displaying on the screen there that we should replace an 8 with a 7.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, the 7 is good, but I don't think we should encourage replacing an 8 because an 8 is probably a terrible record. And if you put a 7 there, it implies that everything's good, but it's a CIP record. And
It's
if you have,
CIP.
so
And
if
at
you
this
just
point-
change it from an 8 to a 7, you're telling them that it's not a CIP record anymore, even though it is a CIP record.
Well, it means you fixed anything wrong that was in the CIP.
Right, but this,
Yeah, but it
this
doesn't
information
really
doesn't
state that
say
well.
Right. Well, I know that's I think why they're getting rid of them, because I don't think people use them consistently.
No.
Can we change this wording to say something like after
After it's
upgrading?
actually been, yeah.
Say that after upgrading a CIP record, replace the 8 with a 7?
Yeah, I think that would be.
And that's
Fine.
CIP.
Well, actually, either replace it 8 or 7 or made blank. I mean, personally, I'd make them blank.
Well, blank is if it's been fully done, and
Right.
there's no guarantee that that has necessarily happened. It may have just been brought up to minimum standards.
Right.
Which
I
it would
think the
still needs to be a
7 is
7.
ideal.
Okay, I guess I was one of those catalogers that fully cataloged everything.
If you're
Well,
an
not everybody has the
OCLC,
time to do
it's-
that.
Yeah, it's different.
Right. I was also cataloging genealogical materials 9 times out of 10. So
Yeah, if
Exactly.
it's a 7, then it's acceptable for Evergreen catalog.
and trust me, genealogy materials, you fully catalog them things.
Yeah, I do pretty much everything I do is full level, because like
Right.
I don't really never understood the point of some of the lesser levels. It's like if you're gonna do it right.
Yeah, but not every library though has the staff to do that. So they need to get their minimum quality stuff
Right.
in. So they don't all have catalogers. They have people cataloging.
I was a person cataloging. I was not a cataloger.
Well, you had time to catalog genealogical materials, which is not a normal thing. So there you go.
I did 1 a week. That was my goal.
Cool.
Okay, so if it's already been updated in the procedures guide, the only thing that I wanted to talk about was sending something to the list, which I will do, and updating the templates. So I think that's all we need to talk about the encoding level changes.
You'd like me to make those changes presently?
Well, I think we need to vote on them.
Okay.
So maybe I will write something up, since I'm going to be writing an email anyway. I'll write something up and then maybe bring it to the next meeting.
Okay.
If there's any other changes that we need to make to the templates, we might as well do them if we're going in and stripping this. So I don't know if there's any weird.
There
stuff you
are
guys
weird
want.
things. I've had there are some things that need to be fixed.
Or new fields
So
that can
do
be
you want
added.
me to open up sharing on those and have some of y'all take a look and see what you'd like to have added in there.
That would be fantastic.
Okay, I will do that as well.
Cool.
So what I'll do is I'll make those commentable.
Great.
So you can make comments on those before we change them, package them up, send them off to Lynn.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, because I'd rather make one change on all these templates than multiple upon multiple changes.
Right. And there are some things that are incorrect and some things that are inconsistent from one template to the other.
Yep.
And that's
so yes.
some of that hodgepodge editing of those templates.
Right. Right. Okay.
Oh, and this is also a good time if we want to add any templates, to add templates.
I think that's something that requires more discussion. That's something that we kind of discussed a little bit earlier.
When it becomes necessary, we'll probably do that as opposed to now. I don't know.
I was figuring while I was editing all of them, just add them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I don't think we have, well, I don't know if we necessarily have any right now that we need.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm happy not to add any. Let's work on me.
Okay, so if we're moving on to new business, I'm going to do our agenda in different order and do F first.
Cool.
New terms for the local thesaurus. Emma wanted to discuss that. She sent an email sometime since the last meeting about adding some new terms to the thesaurus, which the committee would need to discuss and approve. So Emma, take it away.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we discovered that we were using some local subject headings, which it was brought to our attention that those are not okay in Evergreen. And we were using two big ones. One for all of our middle grade items. We were using a 650, but I would propose changing it to a 655 because it's more of a genre. That just says middle grade, and that allows our page, because our middle grade items are scattered across our children's and our teen collection based on what age. So that was how we made sure that any patron who just wanted to see a list of our middle grade items was able to pull that up in the catalog without using conjoined items. We also used a 650, which again, I would argue probably should be a 655 for Library of Things, because our Library of Things is much the same. We have it scattered across our main library and the annex, because we have some things like wheelbarrows, metal detectors, crutches, stuff like that, that can't fit into our main libraries area for Library of Things. And I did some looking, couldn't really find anything that fit those needs and existing headings. I actually did speak to the Library of Congress about adding it, since those are two popular things in libraries, but was told that they considered that a local need and I would have to use a local heading. So Library of Congress is not going to help us out there. And so I'd like to propose that we add those terms to the local thesaurus, since multiple libraries have Library of Things collections, and I'm assuming multiple libraries also have middle grade collections. That's my spiel.
How are you determining middle grade?
For us, we determine middle grade. It is that it's 8 to 14.
Okay.
So the majority of our children's books that are bigger than those little itty bitty chapter books. And then and this could be better defined as well. If we're going to adopt it, we can make sure that there's like a specific definition for libraries to know this is what qualifies, and maybe Eckerd Public Library needs to adjust its definition. But for us, we've been encapsulating anything from that 8 to 14 range.
I'm hesitant to add a term for age ranges because that's so subjective. And sometimes the item will say an age range, but sometimes it's up to the cataloger or the publisher or whoever to determine. And that's very questionable. Britta, is the young adult fiction. I don't use, I don't, is that a genre term? I don't use that either.
Yeah, it's a genre
okay.
term.
Okay. Anyway, that's my feelings. As far as the library of things, I don't think that would be a terrible thing to have 655 for. I'm not sure if that's what we would necessarily want to call it, although maybe. But those are my 4 cents. What do you guys have?
I'm sorry, I was partially on a call and didn't hear all the discussion, but I definitely think we need to make sure that this is useful for multiple libraries and that we're not creating terms just for, because what's in the MARC record has to be kind of neutral for everyone and relevant to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. And that's why I think library of things probably wouldn't be terrible, because so many of us have those kinds of things now.
And it's
Right.
pretty industry standard at this point. Whether we like it or not, that is what people are referring to this as the library of things.
I'm sorry, Jocelyn, I think I cut you off. Were you going to say
No,
something
that
else?
was, I said my piece.
Okay.
And I'll say, I'm like, when it comes down to like this specific terminology, I'm really not picky. It's just the issue that we have this backlog of items that we haven't been able to edit because we don't know how best to group them. So we haven't removed those. But then also we have a lot of items that have been cataloged moving forward that don't have that because we stopped using it once we figured out it wasn't allowed. And it's just been frustrating for us because now we've lost that way that we've helped our patrons to know how to find some of those items. But I'm not picky about what language is used.
Well, I mean, we told people they couldn't put things in records before when we did the reading levels and stuff, because it wasn't applicable to everyone. So if there is like a need for middle grade, the middle grade one is the only one I'm kind of hung up on.
Yeah, because it's not well defined, I don't think. Or it's not defined in such a way that would be applicable to
right, because most
libraries.
libraries would really do it as a shelving location, or they'd have labels or something to
although
indicate.
I really see why, I mean, it would be very useful. I mean, that something along those lines would be useful because there are things that are in many shelving locations that you wouldn't necessarily want to just rely on them. They could be nonfiction, they could be fiction, they could be in all of these other places and not discoverable just by serendipitously wandering through the stacks.
And then there's the subjectivity of what is middle grade. So are we going
well,
to
and
have
that's
an
the thing is
issue
the subjectivity.
where people keep taking it out and people keep putting it back in, taking it out, putting it back in. But I mean, if young adult is a legit heading, then it I don't know.
Well, that's true, but you know, is there a reason that, I mean, maybe the Library of Congress approved YA and hasn't approved something similar for middle grades for the same reason we're talking about right now.
Right.
YA is more distinguishable, whereas middle grades is more subjective. So maybe there's a reason this gap exists.
And I'm wondering if YA fiction, which I believe is I'm wondering if that isn't a publisher standard that hasn't been then described by the Library of Congress, that publishers have said, this is what is young adult fiction, things that are written for 18 to 25-year-olds so that we can market it to them. And then the Library of Congress has said, oh, there is a standard that has been standardized by the publishing industry. Let us now create a heading.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
there's
that
not really
scenario
a
is
clue.
plausible.
Yeah, it looks like it was. I don't know. Authority records sometimes have a lot of really useful information in them, and sometimes they have nothing.
Nothing. Let me point you again to bibliographic records.
So I guess we either need to discuss this and then if I guess we're waiting on someone to make a motion. And if no one makes a motion, then I think we stay as is. Does anyone have any thoughts or want to move forward with anything?
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Because these are two new terms that we're wanting to add to local, I can't say that other word. But we actually put it out to the entire cataloging list and get their opinions on these terms. Not just this.
I agree. I would like more input from people who aren't necessarily here.
Right, because this affects not just the ones of us here, but across the entire consortium. And yes, this group will make the final decision, but I think there needs to be a wider discussion going on with this. Because these terms will affect more than just a few here. Now, my thing, the term library of things, I'm all for that one. Middle grades, I would say go for it, because I've worked with too many young adult and children's librarians that have fought over that middle grade section and how to classify those items. But I think we need more of a discussion as the entire Evergreen Indiana cataloging group. So I think this is a discussion. It needs to be sent out to the main listserv to say, these are some of the terms that we are thinking about adding. What are your opinions and what are your, because at this point, I mean,
Do you think that Library of Things needs to be included in that, since there seems to be some pretty broad consensus here already about that?
I wouldn't say have the Library of Things discussion. I say just, but yes, especially with the middle school, the middle grades, that discussion needs to happen in a much larger environment than just a small group here. Because I mean, I know we have a couple of larger libraries that are not even representative here. So I think it definitely needs to be sent out to the much larger group to have a full understanding of how this would change would affect a lot of the other libraries that are not a part of this group.
That's a good idea.
I agree, although I will point out that one of the reasons the Library of Congress takes forever to update things is because that's what they do. They have committees that just discuss back and forth.
And this committee is specifically elected to represent the body of the consortium. So
and I think normally I wouldn't have an issue with normally this committee having a discussion on it and making the final decision would be great. But I think especially with the middle grades one, it needs to have a larger discussion.
I agree with that.
Who is going to send out that email? Would you like me to? Do
I'm
you
happy to
want to,
do it.
Ruth? Oh, or Keith? Yes, that would.
I personally would like to see Monica do it. Since it is something coming out of the committee. If you're willing to do that, or.
Yep, I can do that. I figure I don't know if people start ignoring my emails. I don't know if we'll get any feedback, but.
Well, if they do, then that will be the point. I think that Keith amplifies it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll pop it out there. We can always put something in an update that we're looking for feedback for this.
Per
It
Monica's
kind of sounds
email.
like we're looking for almost like not necessarily a referendum on the usage of adding a new thesaurus term, but just seeing whether this would be useful, whether
As I
libraries
say,
would
and a
use this.
referendum would require executive committee
Right.
input anyway, so.
Okay, well, I will send out an email. Put it on my to-do list. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we can move back up to the beginning of new business, the annual refresher. I don't know if that's Keith or Ruth or both of you.
It's me.
Okay.
We already talked about the conference sessions. This is, I said this to Keith yesterday. I was like, can you put these two things in the agenda and write them like this? And that is my stream of consciousness, like actually verbalized. So they actually kind of go together. All this to say that the annual cataloging refresher is something that comes out of the cataloging committee and allows individuals with a Cat 1 to keep their status in good standing, and also provide continuing education. So we have, I have suggestions for what the committee may decide what is appropriate for this year's refresher opportunity, and that being opportunities. So the first being, generally the refresher is somewhere between 1.5 to 2 contact hours a year. Often comes in the form of a workshop. Last time it was monographic parts. We had several individuals that helped put that on. And so with all that said, we have several conference sessions that I'm hoping to have the cataloging sessions scheduled to happen, at least 3 of them before the end of 2021, which that they would, the ones that are going to be Anita's conjoined items session. Sarah is going to be talking about serials, and the other, which of course is escaping my mind in the last moment, serials. Hold on real quickly. Let me get in the correct drive here as well. And of course, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'd like to look at the tracks. So many documents here. Serials. Oh, Jocelyn with maps. Sorry, Jocelyn. Of course, I can't believe I forgot that one.
Forget maps.
You talking about cataloging maps.
I know, how can you forget about that? It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Sorry.
going to be magical.
It's already magical. So those, I'm hoping to have those scheduled before the end of 2021. So by attending 2 of those, I think that should could potentially, if you all agree, count towards a cataloging refresher. The other thing is that there are enough new features in 3.7 that it will very likely be about 1.5 hours to 2 hours of just cataloging specific things for the new features to go through, because we'll be going to 3.7. That includes new things from 3.5, 3.6, and 3.7, as well as the addition of carousels, which is a kind of hybrid cataloging patron services thing as well. And then having that new features workshop, the cataloging specific, because there will actually be another one that has generalized things, but having the cataloging specific new features count as the 2021 annual refresher for Cat 1s, if you all so believe. Emma says, I'd prefer the 3.7 for the cataloging refresher. I agree with that. It's a little more applicable to all staff, and it would really encourage a lot of people to get their certification. There are a few lingering ones out there who have not had a cataloging training since 2018, 2019. So an evergreen cataloging training, I'm not sure other things.
Christy agrees. I agree. It's looking like people are leaning toward just making the upgrade features, the refresher.
And that would be way easier on me. I just wanted to provide some options. If that is the way you want to go with that, I'm digging it.
Anybody else have any thoughts or don't want the new features to be the annual refresher?
He's talking about conjoined items. I'd be for it. 3.7, let's go. Yes.
I mean, I think that makes the most sense because the point of the refresher is so that we know how to use the catalog properly when we're cataloging. And how can we do that if we don't understand 3.7? So,
and it will be a big deal too, because the staff catalog will then, the experimental staff catalog that you've seen in 3.4 is going to be the default catalog in 3.7. And we'll see where there are still a few things that are being linked up as we go, because 3.8 also has some additional things which we won't be going to that. So the other sessions are nice to have, and 3.7 is a need to have. Okay. Yeah, if you can get in there and just start like poking at the experimental catalog now, that's going to give you a leg up for when it's all that to say, it is not fully featured in 3.4. It is much more fully featured in 3.7. So anticipate broken things in 3.4 and broken workflows. It doesn't work for everything.
But it does search faster.
It searches so much faster.
Can't wait. Okay, well, it looks like in general, everybody is for that. So I guess you can run with that, Ruth.
Okay, I don't know, didn't know if that needed to have a motion since it is an action of the cataloging committee, I guess. I don't know.
I don't feel like we usually do that.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm going to do it anyway, but just whether or not it counts for the refresher or not.
Yeah, I think that.
Okay.
The general consensus is the yes.
Pardon me, have they scheduled that? You know, they're going to be down on Friday and Saturday for sure.
Wait, say that one more time, Anita.
You think that's going to be over Thanksgiving weekend? I guess that's the first question.
Are you talking about the upgrade to 3.7?
Yes.
That's correct.
That is correct.
And Saturday.
Hopefully, it will only be down Thursday and Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Because
I hear you. No problem.
I am not having to do OS upgrades, other program upgrades. It's just an evergreen upgrade. So what was causing all the issues from before is because I had to do 3 or 4 different other upgrades before I could do the evergreen to 3.4 upgrade. But because we've done those upgrades last year, I don't have to do those upgrades this year. So.
I have one more question about the refresher. Do we want to allow viewing of the recording for that to count as a recertification? And does there need to be some type of knowledge check added to that?
Since it's going to be such a huge attendance, are you going to offer it?
Oh, I don't know if it's going to be a huge attendance, but
I mean, the last one was, wasn't it?
yeah, we had 2 shots. We had 2 sessions, and we can have 2 sessions for this as well. But that still may not accommodate everybody. Emma?
I don't know about other libraries, but I know that Eckert has several our school librarians during the school year. So we would really appreciate the ability for a recording to be watched so that they don't have to take a personal day from their full-time jobs to watch a 2-hour recording.
Does there need to be some, oh, the words are missing from me, accountability?
I think
That
so.
leave up to others. I'll do whatever people require of me. I just know some of my staff would appreciate the ability to like come in on a Saturday and watch that recording as part of their EPL work instead of having to watch it during their workday as a school librarian.
Monica, what you were saying, I think so.
Oh, I think that, yeah, there should probably be some kind of way to prove that they've watched it, even if that's just, you know, when you get to the video, there's something that you have to email you and Keith to prove that you made it to the end of the video. Or it could be like a quiz, but I think that it wouldn't hurt to have some kind of proof.
Yeah, I was sitting here thinking about it, and I've seen this in other videos that at the very end of the video, there's a link that you have to use that's only in the video at a certain lot, and they leave it long enough for you to write it down or copy it over. You can't highlight and copy it, but they
What would prevent somebody from just like skipping ahead and doing that?
there's no way to do that. If they know it's there, they're going to skip ahead anyway.
But they're not going to skip ahead because we've never done this before.
Right, but we've gone to a virtual world last couple of years, so.
But the thing is that link gives them basically a knowledge check. It is a question answer form that they have to fill out.
Okay.
That has actually information from.
So it's a knowledge check. Click a link to go and fill out this thing. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'll work on that as well then to do something that's not like overly.
It's not overly complicated, but enough to know that yes, they did watch the full video.
Not SAT level either.
No.
So.
Okay.
SAT, ACT. I'm old, man. I don't even know if people take those tests.
Thank
you.
Then let's move on to Keith and the cover art uploader.
Cool. So good news to everybody who has submitted tickets for, or who has ever submitted tickets in the past for getting your cover art changed on items. Ray, that the code for that is scheduled to drop next Tuesday, which is the 7th. We have 16 people signed up, I believe, to partake in the testing. And I know several of you are on the committee, so thank you for your willingness to do that. I believe there will be 2 test environments. One is going to be like the stock evergreen test environment that our developer is spinning up for us. And then we're also going to have a branch that tests against our own version of evergreen that uses our data. So there will be a couple different sandboxes to play in, if you will. The biggest thing that's of, I guess, concern to the committee here is that's going to add a new level of, it's essentially a new permission that would be added. I'm assuming that it's almost certainly something that we'll want to only give access to Cat 1s to change. But that is something that should probably be changed. I have the policy over here. It should probably be added to the cataloging policy. And I don't know whether or not you want any other wording in there about how the cover art uploader should be used. I know that we'll definitely want something in the procedure for how to use it. And we'll have more insight into how all the pieces work together once we actually get our hands on it and can play around with it. But the general idea is that you upload one image and then the cover art uploader will take it and resize it to the specifications, the large, medium, and small images that Evergreen uses right now. So, whoop, sorry.
Ruth, you're muted.
Yep.
I just clicked it. I was unmuted and muted myself and started talking. Got nothing. But one of the things that has come up has been that there have been some comments recently about people changing existing cover art because not necessarily because the art was wrong, but because they liked something better. And this is not from Cat Ones, I will say that. So that is one thing that gave me hope that the people who are actually cataloging don't have some overt desire to like change stuff just because they can. But I do think that there is perhaps a misconception more broadly that there are going to be all these massive changes to the way things appear in the catalog. So I do think that that probably needs to be spelled out in any policy, that the use is either to correct things that are not correctable because of how things are mapping from the MARC, that happens pretty frequently because of, well, relatively frequently, or to add actual cover art. And that's the big thing, is that as people are, we see it a lot with Library of Things, but then also some older materials and materials that are created. Maps may actually be something that this would be applicable for, to upload something where there does not exist cover art whatsoever. So all of those things need to be, in my mind, taken into consideration for this, because it will open up a fair amount of power over how these records are displayed, and that needs to be addressed by policy.
Yeah, we definitely need to have some stuff written down, because there have been help desk tickets where people were like, this doesn't match what I have. And it's like, but it is the same book. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, it's not the exact same cover. We're not going to correct that.
Right. Because then,
Okay.
well, yeah, anyway, go ahead, Monica.
Well, I was just going to say is that, I mean, I think that as far as documentation, both of how to use it and who has permissions, probably is going to have to wait till it goes live. So I think that there's probably not anything else we need to discuss about that right now.
It may be able to, we could possibly start an email thread prior to it going live, because we will have a branch attached to the development server. That all those words go together to a thought. That sentence didn't make sense.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I said live, I guess maybe not necessarily live, but
Not
live
production,
in the,
yes.
yeah, being tested.
And we'll
And-
also have, one of the nice things about working with Equinox is we will have documentation for the feature that can also perhaps inform some of the verbiage for the policy that's drafted by the committee here. So
Sandra has a question there that hopefully one Keith or Ruth can answer.
will there be a record of who uploaded an image? I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm assuming that it will be just like any other edit to a bibliographic record.
It will almost certainly be something we can view in the logs. I don't
Yeah.
know whether it will be displayable.
Yeah,
Probably
you might not,
on
the
on
cataloger might not be
record.
able to see it, but I would think we should be able to see.
It should be a log entry, but we'll
yeah.
have to verify that.
Yeah, when we play
during
around
testing.
with it, we'll be able to see if it does a last edit change.
And
Which
if
is
we-
another reason why we're putting it in a local development environment, so that we can actually see what's happening in the logs when we test it. Because with their test environment, I cannot see we can't see the log files.
Now, it is important to note too that as we are testing, also, if there is anybody in this meeting who has not signed up to test, but all of a sudden wants to be, shoot me an email and I'll send you the form to fill out, which basically just says, hey, I want to test that way. We keep you in the loop as far as when that starts. There is going to be an instructional meeting on Tuesday to basically talk about the different test environments, how to report issues that you find and things like that, so that we can communicate well and efficiently with the developers to get those things addressed. We have 2 weeks to test, so it'll be a bit of a race, but it's fun. It's kind of fun if you like doing that kind of thing. So yeah, I think I went off track. Will there be a record? And if we find evidence of people abusing it, we can always take the tool away from everyone. No, we would just actually probably like revoke their permission.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why
I
I
think
had
they
this
would
pulled up
lose.
in the. Sorry, Jocelyn, go ahead.
They should lose a lot of permissions, not just
Yeah.
the cover upload.
Oh yeah, no, that I think that would be possibly a way to like.
Although I'm not gonna lie, the first thing I think about that I want to do is just put pictures of me attached to like
I know.
everything.
Well, I mean, that may be something that can be done if you want, if you're, I don't remember who all is testing, that you can like get all of that out in the testing
Yeah.
on those two servers and just mess that whole thing up. So
That's my plan.
awesome. Because you can do that during testing. No policies apply. It's just functionality. Potentially, I see a staff member wanting to get their Cat 1 specifically for the ability to upload pictures of kids. I wish, so staff members cannot get a Cat 1 just because they take training. They have to be recommended by a supervisor for that. And the form has to be filled out. Searches for ISBN sees Jocelyn.
Yep.
And it could happen. Why wouldn't those staff just send pictures to the catalog to update the record? Yeah. Yeah, we don't just actually hand out Cat 1s just because people say they want one. They have to go through specific steps to do that include a supervisory recommendation for it. I need to leave the meeting shortly. Okay. Christy, thank you so much. And Christy will be utilizing this cover art uploader for sure for all the library of things that they use. So.
Okay, so can we move on? Are we done with the
I don't think
catalog?
there's any. I don't think there's any action that we can take at this time. It's just something to keep in mind. Once the code drops, we'll want to make those changes and get them in place, largely for reasons like Charles mentions. If we need to let people know that if you abuse this, bad things will happen, and we should probably spell out what the what abuse means and what the bad things are.
I'll bring a club with me to the meeting, and
My tire iron is always close to my heart and also my desk.
Yes.
Yes, this is going to free up a lot of Bob's time. So
Bob had 28, I think.
well, Christy just said she
requests.
accounts for 9 of them.
No one suspected. No one
No,
suspects the
there's only got
cataloging Inquisition.
19 the other week.
I don't know, Charles. I'm pretty sure that everyone suspects the cataloging Inquisition.
I feel there are people who are constantly acting like the cataloging Inquisition.
I have nothing to say. 776 fields. I'm excited about this.
So someone in my region emailed me about 776 fields. He said that he had seen, he wanted to know whether he should be deleting them or not. He says he's seen lots of ones where the 776 just says online version : and there's nothing after it. Now, I personally have seen a lot of 776s that look like that, but then there's a second 776 that actually has bibliographic information in it. So I don't know if you guys, what you guys have seen. Anyway, the 776 isn't really addressed in the procedures guide. So I told him I would bring this up to the committee. Does anybody have any thoughts about the 776 preferences, whether it should be there, anything?
Yeah, it sounds like maybe when they imported the record that the other subfields after the online version fell off.
Like when the ones that I've seen, I mean, you might be right, and that's what happened. The ones that I've seen, there have been 2 separate 776s, and I've never understood why, but I just let them go and ignore them.
I can see where I pulled up what the OCLC bid format 776 was because I wanted to figure out what it was. Yeah, I don't know why anything after the subfield I would drop off on import.
I also don't know why there would be 2.
I can see why there's 2.
I mean, it's repeatable, but if it's, I guess it could be if there's like, it's like one say print version, one says another
online
version.
When I don't pay much attention to them, but the ones that when I do see them, usually it's like I assume that it's a formatting decision on the behalf of the catalog, or whether that's because it's supposed to be or not, but they have a 776 that just says online version. And then the next 776 has all the information. So I'm assuming that they're hoping that the catalog is going to say online version : like when you the display will say online version : and then it will mention all the stuff after it. But I like I said, I just assume that's a cataloging choice.
I don't know. I guess I would kind of want to see examples.
Yeah, it seems like it's a record by record thing.
Yeah.
I can definitely share examples. I can't share examples of what he saw.
Yeah, if you come across the one with 2, because to me it sounds like what he saw, that somehow it just stripped
or
after the subfield I.
Is it even possible that he saw one of the same kind that I did, but he didn't realize there was another 776 off the bottom of the screen?
That's possible too.
I wonder
okay.
if it says, it has a 776 that says online version, and then there's an 856 that links to the online version.
I don't know. I will send some examples to the committee as I find them.
Yeah, I'll keep a lookout for them too. I don't.
Do you want to?
One I use a lot.
Do you want to just create a bucket for that, Monica, and share that out so you don't have to formulate an email?
Okay.
It's up to you.
I'm gonna have to formulate an email anyway, but yes, that's a good idea.
Maybe not multiple emails.
Right. Yes, I will do that, and then maybe we can discuss it again later. I just told him I would bring it up.
Generally, I mean,
and that would give him the opportunity to add things to that bucket as well, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
But generally, if it's a legit field and bib formats and standards, leave it alone.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's broken, or maybe he's bringing it in from some other institution who stripped that stuff out, which is always possible. But
okay. Well, that's all. We don't need to dwell on that. Charles, board books.
Yes. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So this was we recently added a bunch of new board books to our bookmobile. That yay, that is a thing. But we were talking and looking at them and thought, why isn't there an icon for board books in the catalog? So I thought I would bring it to the committee and we would examine it and see if there's any way we could add it, like maybe automate how the icon is generated without it causing a bunch of undue burdens to catalogers. It's like, oh, we need to add this item, this line to the field to make the icon display properly. So anyway, that's the long and the short of it, was just an icon for board books for the catalog.
And what field would it be pulling from to generate it?
I don't know.
So that's, that I think is the big question, is
Because
what
there's
is the
not,
indicator in the mark to,
there isn't like
not the indicator, yeah.
a code specifically for board books, right?
No,
Right. I mean,
there would have to be something that would have to be added to the mark
Yeah.
record for us to be able to pull in something that says, for this icon, if the record has this, use this icon.
Mhm.
Now, books are general, but for a board book, there's got to be something somewhere in the code that is put in that says board book, or
There's supposed to be a 500 note that says on board pages. And
That's really
so,
hard to generate.
right.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't figure that was great, but supposedly there should be a 500 that says that. But yeah, I know that's not ideal.
There's not
No.
some weird RDA tag for those yet.
No,
There's a 655. Well, you know, 650. There's a 650 of board books.
Yeah, but
That-
that's generally not what is being used. Those down record fields are generally not what's being used to.
Well, I know they're not generally, but does that mean they can't be? I mean, because there is an LCSH that goes in the 650 that is just board books. So if you could generate your icon based on the 650.
Yeah, it's generally the 007 and the fixed fields.
Well, and some of the 340s, I think.
right.
I think that the board books are significantly different from other books that they warranted.
There was by and large some positive feedback in the
I would agree that it would be nice if we could signify that it's a board book in the catalog, because a lot of libraries are going to have they're going to have the regular version and then the board book version.
Yeah.
And you can sometimes tell that based on the call number, but I mean,
yeah, but that's going to be
Right.
library specific.
right.
And the way,
and I did
all
think
of-
that I think it was, I can see why we have so many different icons for all the various video game systems, which, believe me, I love that, but it's like, I don't know, I feel
It's
like
less useful.
yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that has a very specific thing. And it's not something, the people who collect video games, I think, are pretty good about making sure that very specific thing is in there. But everyone gets board books. So, can we guarantee that that very specific thing we need to be in the record is going to be there?
Lynn, how easy is it to use the stuff that you need to use to map those icons to add something that would include an additional field, and then in this case, actual text string? Is that feasible?
hold on. Let me
I
look
mean,
at
I'm sure it's technically possible, but so are lots and lots of things.
Give me 1 minute. Let me look at something.
I can technically plant a tree that I scooped the hole out with a spoon, but I do not want to do that.
You sure about that? How big's the spoon?
So is this the same time that I should request a specific icon for a conjoined item shelf?
No, Anita.
No,
it is
Anita.
That's under unfinished business. You'll have to wait till December.
You're not even.
I feel like the Smarty Pants stamp needs to come out right now.
I think she's a little sassy.
I think so too.
Not even sure you're gonna let me do that, so. Yeah. Well, we have large print books. I understand why we would be going after board.
Large print uses a
There's
different.
a code in the fixed field. There's a 1-letter code That's all
Yeah.
it needs to generate that icon.
It's the form code of
D.
So
D.
I understand, and I'm saying if you're going to define large print, then I guess I can understand why you'd have to define or would want to define.
I understand. I would love to be able to find something that in the mark record would be able to define a board book.
So here's something that could potentially get me kicked off of the planet of catalogers.
I'm still looking. For
Bring it.
Despite the fact that OCLC has not and the Library of Congress have not defined a specific code in there for board books, but they have for large print, could we as a consortium add a code in there for board books?
In the
Fixed field.
in the form fixed field.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think we could.
I mean, again, technically,
This is
Of
like
course
the
we can.
whole Jurassic Park thing.
I was gonna
Just
say, this
because
is-
we can. should
yeah.
We?
Mr. DNA is like in my head right now. Who-
I'm gonna look at the
You
form
should
fixed
know
field.
actually Morse back and forth between Clippy because they have the same voice and personality.
I would like for it to be in a fixed field thing, not looking for
Text in the record.
or board books or,
Yeah.
or board book, because it could be typed many, multiple different. ways.
Right. And
Well, the
see,
fact that
that's
I'm
why I
still
thought this-
alive.
That's why I thought the 650 would be okay because it's authorized.
Right. I
And
mean,
so
it
it's
is
gonna be the
definitely
same-
controlled vocabulary.
Right.
there's nothing that's saying we can't use the 650.
No, except for catalogers, which is, I mean, a legit thing, please. I mean, but if we could,
Yeah, if I were at my own library, not in a group with over 100 other libraries, yeah.
you
I-
would add a form.
Yeah, I think, because I think there's every library I've worked at, the board books have been a separate thing. And I think it is helpful to be able to see right away that it's a board book by looking at your computer screen.
I do
Kinda
think
wish
that any
Microfiche
change,
didn't have the B. Because Microfiche currently is the one that's the B in the form field.
I mean, that
Yeah.
would be easy, but they're all weird anyway, so we could be kind of weird with it.
Yeah, we'd want to use something weird like an X that
Exactly.
no
me-
one would use for anything.
Now, my next question is, even if we can add a separate form field, will it actually populate in the, because that is one, that's not what I want.
Well, that would definitely need to be mapped as well.
Right.
Yeah, it would be just like the video game ones, except you're telling it to look for the value of X and or whatever we decide to call it.
Oh, man, let me answer my own questions in my head and then I don't want the flat text. I want form. Because in the mark record, if you right click on the form field, it gives you options A, B, C, D,
Ooh.
Mhm.
F, O, Q, R, and S.
Right.
Now, can we put it?
And there are some additional ones that OCLC has defined. We wouldn't want to mess with those.
Right.
Well, maybe I'm just looking at them wrong. Maybe they're not defined.
Because
Oh, no, those are they're all in there. Okay, never mind. I'm wrong.
OCLC has 10 assigned form fields. Now, what does the Library of Congress have? I hate trying to read. This is it. Fixed field data elements.
Yeah, I don't think that they have any additional
No.
ones to that for the form. That they've accommodated form as a fixed field, but they have not defined what those may be.
Right. OCLC has defined.
Correct.
But not.
Is anybody like fundamentally against adding a form code for the fixed fields?
I kind of want to think through it a bit more.
Okay.
But,
I mean, it's kind of a big deal, even though it doesn't
It
sound like
is.
a big deal.
yeah. And I mean, I like the idea. I'm glad Charles brought it up. I agree that it would be great to have something that would generate an icon for them. But I kind of want to think more about it and see if there's other options.
Now, my next question is the icon itself. We'll have to figure
Could
out.
it just be a B that has a BB or a book that has a BB on it, like large print has an LP?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be
Or
fun.
just say the word board underneath it.
Chonky
Oops.
book.
Yes, it's a chunky boy.
But yeah, I kind of want to look around and see what other options we might have.
The 007 has a text option.
There are some weird things. There are some weird things that aren't commonly used in records that, because I've seen that the large print, what is it? I've seen the 007 does have a text option. But yeah,
Are
I
you
think we need to
referring to the- Sorry,
to
go
think
ahead.
about this a little bit more, but
There's general agreement that having that distinct icon is valuable.
I personally think so, and I barely have any. I have some.
Oh, and the
Yeah,
Young Reader
I
Center.
hate reading
Yeah.
LC's bibliographic format standards when it comes to fixed fields. There's always good OCLC for fixed fields. Make things much easier.
Oh, the scope note says it's for board books and for books about board books. Mm.
How many of those are there?
Right.
Books about board books.
Britta,
I
well,
mean-
yeah.
I don't know.
but-
I got books
Uh.
about pop-up books, so they also were pop-up books,
That makes
some
a little bit more
cases,
sense.
but not in all cases. They were not all pop-up books about pop-up books, but some were. Granted, that's not board books, so it may be different for pop-up books.
Oh,
Sure.
Josephine makes a good point because we do have some things that are not board books, but we showed with our board books because they were a sturdier kind of
Mhm.
plasticky paper.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. And
Those indestructible books, and then there are also that just have the
Mhm.
sticker
Exactly.
pages. Yeah.
So that Josephine, that's a good point. That we'd have to delineate what counts as a board book.
yeah, because you have those cloth books that are truly indestructible that
Right.
get
Well,
thrown in with the board books.
So one of the
and-
things to keep in mind then for this is that right now with the templates, I think that we would probably need to, generally there isn't a 007 that is necessarily defined for books because something is used for AV. So it would need to, if that's where we decide to
There
go
is one
using
for
that.
text.
Yes, there is one. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
in terms of like record imports and things like that, that would need to be something that was included or added
Mhm.
because it wouldn't necessarily come in with a 007.
Right.
And the templates for books right now don't include a 007.
They're not needed.
So
By and
there would
large.
probably need to be a new template that included a 007 ostensibly for board books, or
Or a
maybe
template.
something
Yeah.
else. I mean,
That's
there may-
why I don't know that I like that option, because no one's like, some people are gonna do it, but a lot of people aren't.
Right. And I mean, the kind of workaround in my head right now is going into flat text and adding a 007, or you could do it in the enhanced editor. And then that then uncovers the physical characteristics wizard, and then knowing the whole process to go through and define that. It becomes I don't say a lot of work, but depending on the quantity of board books, probably a lot of work, especially if you're going back retroactively to add things to the existing collection.
So do we want to stew on this and discuss it next
Yeah,
time?
I'd like to think about it some more.
And
with
then
the
maybe in the meantime, think about one, if we want to even do it, and two, think about if there's a way to consider options to make Evergreen be able to do it. So we'll table that, and Keith, that can go in unfinished business for next month or next meeting.
I witnessed this.
What'd you say?
I witnessed this.
Okay.
Charles, since this is your thing, do you have any other things to add about this? Do you feel like this is good direction forward, at least?
I think it's a good direction. It does sound like everyone that, everyone's concerns that they've had about this are, have been addressed. My big thing, like I said, is, I think this is something that would be beneficial to add retroactively. The question, again, as we've said, is, how do we do this without placing undue burden on our workflows, which is the big thing.
Have I mentioned parts? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know this is actually.
No.
No. No.
And there will be other buckets for every library.
Remember that statement I made earlier about going up to bat for anybody? He uses a statement, uses technology around restrictions. I recant this.
Monica, I love that you verbally said no and you put it in chat with so many exclamation points.
We spend enough time
Monica's
talking about parts. We do not need to spend more time talking about
It gives me
parts.
indigestion. I'm the one that keeps saying it, causing indigestion. Now we're going into Dolly Parton.
Yeah, so I don't remember who emailed about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library books, but someone did. I've not seen these. I think Mary Kay or someone said that we shouldn't even have them unless people are donating them to us. I'm inclined to treat them like Scholastic books, but what does the committee think?
I agree about treating them like Scholastic books, because from my understanding, it's the same situation. The pagination's the same.
It just maybe has a badge on the cover that says, yeah.
Because we have Kohl's. Kohl's used to reissue a bunch of children's books with.
Yes,
And
I think
it's
they
kind
still
of the
do.
same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise we're just putting in records that are essentially duplicates, and nobody cares.
Right.
Was there also a case that these books, this is exactly what it is. Of course it is. That there were MARC records that were going in individually and then there was a field in there that said that they were Dolly Parton Imagination. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Well, so
to not do that.
Jennifer agrees too. Do we want to, that should be put into the procedures guide? Would someone like to write some proposed wording to edit the Scholastic section of the procedures guide, that we could edit that and then approve it at the next meeting?
Where's Britta?
Quiet on the topic.
I think she left.
No.
She left too.
Oh.
She said.
I've been looking up the stupid 650 board book thing.
Britta, it's okay. Let it go.
Now we'd like you to look up
pasted it in
your
there for you.
020s now.
I know, but I don't agree, so I'm looking for a way around it. Both
I can
options.
write it because I think I did the Scholastic one.
Would you mind?
No, I can do it.
That would be wonderful. And then, does anyone else disagree? Does anyone disagree that that's how they should be treated?
I mean, in so much as they are the same as if they follow within those guidelines, I think that they should be treated similarly. Yeah.
Okay, well, Jocelyn, if you would do that, that would be great. And then we'll talk about it. That can also go on unfinished business, Keith.
I witnessed this.
We already did the local thesaurus, so I think that's all of new business finally. Do we have any announcements? I don't think.
And then just the next meeting will be December 2nd. I believe we're probably going to stick with the online format for the time being. Just things aren't looking like they're trending in the direction we want to trend them health-wise in the state. So I think the virtual, just planning the virtual meetings just removes the headache of reserving the conference room and then canceling the conference room and canceling the annual conference and
sorrow and sadness all around.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else? Would anyone like to motion that we adjourn? Or do you want to sit here all day?
No.
I'll motion.
Staff look like busy, so they don't bother me. So
Sandra motioned.
Second.
Who seconded?
Josephine.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you,
we will
everyone.
See you on December
Thank you.
2nd.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you,
so much.
everybody.
Take care.